I would want to throw a question to the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia. I want to ask him whether he couldn't arrest the dollar properly, or it is the IGP, David Asante Akp0 that couldn't keep the key properly, and then maybe the dollar actually broke sales, or party militias who went to steal the key from IGP. Yes, that's the question I want to ask the Vice President.
Now, one of the issues which has turned into a national discussion as I'm speaking to you now, if you are not in Ghana, particularly, you also be facing the same problem. I'm talking about the dollar to the cedi, the ratio to the dollar. Say a can't dollar issue when you're traveling outside the country, you want to buy something outside the country, and let's say the thing is $30. You go today, they will tell you, say, okay, $1 is 5 cedis. The next day you go, they will tell you $1 is 6 cedis. They no sano, Emma, a dreadful phone to me, any helm ye. Because a new corner at the 5 cedis a china acostro, and now the bassa and a boy ding into my amount for into me in top. When that happens, it weakens the economy, it makes consumers one more to it makes their purchasing power low. Into no sani and to now ma one more ton supplier ability or supplier power, one more ton from suppliers, supplier power and also up but down. So because of that, all these things does not help to stabilize the economy, my economy no enkoye. Now, yesterday at the town hall meeting, which was led by our own Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, explaining what really led to the points of events, dollar nakosono, Dr. Bawumia said that the dollar went up because of the bad governance of the then NDC government, which was led by our own Mahama spoiled everything. He further went on to say, so because Mahama and those in power then, I'm talking about 2012, then they were mismanaging the economy. They were just chopping money by heart, buying cars and feeding their girlfriends. No, the economy went into recession. When it went into recession like that, the dollar had gone up so much during that time. I mean, inflation was so much up during that time. So, they ran to IMF to seek for a bailout, to seek for a reform. Say, hey, Ghana economy enkoye. When you talk about IMF is International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund. Usually, they take control of country economy. So, economy enkoye. They will give you a bailout program. So, they went there to them to seek for help or to seek for a bailout, which IMF gave them, and also send them through a series of programs. So because of that, Ghana so, and during that time to the past NDC government, they were borrowing so much into my consumer purchase and a supplier power no the from consumer purchase one more and a suppliers no one more then or makofa the omoton amaye customers. Into yes, and my economy near bed be weak. That's what Bawumia says. So because of that, the dollar had went so much up because the country was full of in-debt, or the country was full of indebtedness. Ghana near dikabibre. Into because of that, no now dollar ne kwa ne cost. But since what happened was no na buy no or not say and $dollar no. They put in some economic reforms to hold the dollar into Australian dollar, and it was almost at 5.9, which was almost like 6 cedis. Since I know dollar na $3 na bechia mana dollar number 5.3, which is something which has never ever been experienced here in Ghana. Say dollar be cost no mas then actually scanner apart from. So this was what Dr. Bawumia said. Meanwhile, he said that the way forward, there's good news for Ghana because the dollar will come further down because of the further implementations by our own MPP government. And what's more, they are doing everything in their power to make sure that the bad governance or the president which was set by our own NDC government won't happen again, because they are the cause of the dollar issue. This is what he said, not forgetting that he said that, I mean, if the fundamentals are weak, the economy or the economy will expose you whichever way he said it. Take a look at this particular video.
The 8.4% depreciation that we saw in 2018, that worst performance is better than the best performance under the previous government between 2012 and 2016. So our worst is better than your best. And then you say boot for boot. This one is more boot for Chalewote. Ladies and gentlemen, the start of 2019, has been characterized by another sudden sharp depreciation of the cedi, which was largely been reversed. Within a week, the cedi went up close to 5.9 to the dollar, and then it retreated back to about 5.07, and even was threatening to go below 5. But this is really an unprecedented development, that you don't normally see such a retreat when the exchange rate depreciates. And this was also, and you see within in the next graph, when we look at the cedi-dollar exchange rate, that you will see that in this period there was a reversal in the cedi depreciation. The Bank of Ghana had not intervened in the market. In fact, you look at it as at the end of March 2019, the cedi has depreciated by about 5.18% so far this year. But we have to understand, how come we saw this sort of movement in the exchange rate at the beginning of the year, a few weeks ago? What happened? Why did it jump so far? Many reasons have been given. Let me tell you what happened. The most important, the proximate cause of the recent depreciation is the time inconsistency of an IMF prior action on the reserves target. At the end of January, as part of the said prior actions, to get to the IMF board and the completion of the IMF program, the IMF gave Ghana 7 actions to complete before March 15. 7 prior actions that we had to meet. 7 conditions. One of the conditions that the Bank of Ghana had to meet was to increase its net international reserves to the level of December 2018. To increase the net international reserves meant that the Bank of Ghana could not sell any foreign exchange in the market. They had to essentially hold their hands to the back and could not intervene on the market during this particular period. So demand for foreign currency was not met by supply as normally happens on a day-to-day basis. And we know when the demand is greater than the supply, or the supply is not coming, price will go up. And this is exactly what was happening. So to meet the Bank of Ghana, and the Bank of Ghana had to increase its reserves by about $800 million. And this explains, what was happening. So once the reserves target was met, we then had the IMF board meeting on March 20th, which passed Ghana. So this partly explains why the cedi came under such pressure. It was the primary reason. Contrary to some speculation, the Bank of Ghana did not spend any reserves to revive the cedi following the initial depreciation. Some people have misunderstood the requirement by the IMF for the Bank of Ghana to build up its reserves by some $800 million to mean that the bank used $800 million to reverse the depreciation. That will not be wise. The reason for the sudden reversal in the sharp depreciation that we observed was that the market corrected itself. Investor sentiments, expectations, and uncertainties acknowledged that the fundamentals are much stronger than expected. And even without the IMF, fiscal and monetary discipline are assured. The reversal of the depreciation that has taken place actually supports the fact that the fundamentals are indeed strong. But the NDC logic will insist, in the face of contrary evidence, that since you cannot walk, then it must mean your leg must be broken. In 2014, the exchange rate depreciated by 31.3%. The fiscal deficit was 10.1% of GDP. The public debt rose to 70.2% of GDP. Inflation rose to 17%. And GDP growth had declined from 7.3% to 4%. In other words, the economic fundamentals had weakened significantly, and therefore the depreciation was easily explainable. It was not caused by dwarfs or high-rise buildings, as we were told. The exchange rate in 2014 had exposed the weak economic fundamentals. And if you look at the table on the screen, it gives you the fundamentals as we have it in 2014, and you look at them in 2018. Every single one of them, real GDP growth, inflation, the fiscal balance, wage bill to GDP, gross debt, interest rates, and all of that, current account, all the fundamentals, you will see we were in a much weaker position in 2014 compared to 2018. So, ladies and gentlemen, how has the Cedi performed recently? At the end of December 2017, the Cedi had cumulatively depreciated by 4.9% compared to 9.6% in 2016. And this was the Cedi's best performance since 2011. At the end of 2017, we had the best performance of the Cedi since 2011. The Cedi, however, depreciated by 8.4% in 2018, lying on account of the emerging market pressures and US interest increases. The data, ladies and gentlemen, on the annual rate of depreciation of the Cedi in recent years, and you will see the graph here, it's like night and day. The data on the annual rate of depreciation of the Cedi in recent years shows that the worst performance so far under the MPP government